Can you share the experience of when you were wounded?
Yeah, it wasn't pleasurable.
Yeah, no shit.
It was not.
Just a little pinch.
It was not an abnormal night. It wasn't atypical in any way. I was actually on I don't know what it would be called. If it would be called a cross-training deployment or it would be a currency deployment. But I got shot February 5th, 2005. And in that time period, or at that time, Development Group was heavily focused on Afghanistan. And the Army component of JSOC, just because I don't know what name they're currently using or they want to be used by, I'm just going to say the Army component of JSOC was heavily focused on Iraq. And the powers that be, sometimes they make very good decisions. And they realize that it's probably not good to have that much geographic specificity. So they wanted to take an element from each and train with and deploy with the other one. So I was actually on a deployment with Army guys, 5 other Blue guys, which is the JSOC term for Development Group, TF Blue. Army guys are TF Green. We were with them in Iraq, based out of the Green Zone, staying in one of Uday and Qusay's palaces. We would go banging at night and then sit on inflatable flamingos in their pool.
Popping Viagra and drinking Johnny Walker Blue Label.
We would go the other way. So I was working with those guys, and I get asked often on my thoughts about other special operations forces, and I have the same answer every time. I got nothing but respect. Yeah. Even internally in the SEAL teams, and specifically at JSOC, there were people who were like, fuck those Army guys, and I'm sure some of the Army guys were like, oh, fuck those Navy guys. I had great experiences with them. Yeah. Still maintain contact with some of the guys I was on deployment with. They became really good friends. At an operator level, awesome. They're no different. Yeah. They just wore a different uniform. Yeah. At the higher levels, the political levels, I'm sure because they're battling for budget and probably operational ability, or not ability, but operational mission sets, I could see there probably be some tension. But so we were banging hard with those guys. I mean, God, it was awesome. Every night we would go and the sun would go down and you'd get your game gear on and the target set would start lighting up and we would launch and we would roll it into another one. We had a full TF-160th package with Blackhawks and Little Birds and DAPs. We had the MHs and the AHs, which are the Magnum PI helicopters. You can sit on the skids, or they have rocket pods, and they literally aim with a freaking grease marker. The pilot gets up there, he's like, if he misses, he's like, and moves it over. Those guys are badass. So, I mean, like 5 nights out of 7, I was on the skid of a Little Bird, 50 feet over the top of Baghdad, just banging targets out. It was awesome. In this particular night, we were doing what's called a GAF, or a ground assault force. We were taking vehicles because it was in Baghdad itself. And we walked through a burning garbage dump, which was awesome. Yeah,
which is now your favorite scent of aftershave.
Yes, indeed. It smells amazing. And I forget who we were after and what we were doing because it wasn't atypical. It was totally just another night. And I was walking point for my element. And I know we were looking for a particular handset, meaning a cell phone, and we were having some difficulties actually locating it, and we were making some noise in the process. We actually had somebody run out of a courtyard and see us further down the road. We pursued them and detained them, determined that they were not the people we were looking for. We let them go. I'm pretty sure we shotgun breached a door or two during that time period. Point being, we didn't necessarily have our ninja slippers on anymore. Yeah. So for about 10 minutes, I was standing on a ladder looking over a courtyard wall, and all the courtyards there have probably 6 to 8 foot walls that are 6 to 8 inches thick of mud, just looking at the front of a building. And there was a light on in the main front window, and it looked a lot like an American house, at least in the architecture, where it had a recessed window, and it looked like a section of the house came out that could have had like a normal place where a garage door was going to be, except for the garage door was a window in this instance. And then the widget guy who, I don't know, magically knows where these things are, he said, hey, this is actually the building. So I hopped over the wall and was going to make movement to the door because I was going to hold security while a friend of mine ended up putting a breaching charge on the door. But something in the back of my head just told me just to hang out. So I waited until I heard some more people come over the wall off the ladder. And I started making my way towards the door. And right when I got to the corner of the building that was sticking out, before I turned my back on the window, I wanted to take a look in it, just as a good operational principle to stay alive. And as soon as I took my head off of the window, or my vision and attention off of the window that was lit, and I swung it to the right, I heard off my left shoulder just cack, 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 and the first round out just pounded into my hip and it spun me sideways and kicked my feet out from underneath me. It felt like I had a 9-inch nail and a baseball bat and just let fully juiced up Jose Canseco or Mark McGwire take a swing at me.
God damn.
Flat on my back. Gunfire erupted from the house. It seemed like it took about 4.5 years, but it was probably about a half of a second. And the guys on the wall started hammering back. I ended up pinned underneath the vehicle. I had a shotgun underneath my right shoulder, and the bungee strap that I had attached to my armor ended up wrapping around a piece of the undercarriage. So I was trying to get out from underneath the vehicle while staring at AK fire from probably about 15 feet away, just listening to the rounds impact on the vehicle. And my buddy ended up having to come over and grab me and drag me around the corner, basically right underneath the window that I was going to look in, which was empty and dark. And they continued to prosecute the target, and there ended up being 8 guys wounded that night. Some of them were blue on blue, actually. The CAG, whatever. The CAG guys. Damn it. I think that's an unclassed name, so we should be fine. Had made entrance on the other side, and they were working their way internally towards the building that the guy was shooting from, and they had gotten into a gunfight inside. Well, they ended up breaching a metal door that was facing the train that was coming towards us. So there were multiple gunshot wounds, and then there was wounds sustained from the breaching charge itself, because we put a C6 strip on that thing, which is a robust charge. And I know that's not going to make sense to a lot of people, but it's enough to take down a very heavily reinforced metal door. And I don't think this door was either of those things. So most of the explosive blast went into the Army personnel. They ended up flying in little birds to get the people who were the most severely wounded out. I ended up getting put in the back of a Bradley fighting vehicle with another guy that I was with who'd been shot in the hand. And that was it. That was the end of my deployment. In
terms of your triage on yourself, what did you do anything to yourself to help mitigate blood loss and shit like that?
So I grabbed high on my left leg. It's funny. My buddy who ended up pulling me around the corner, he's an awesome guy. He's out now thriving, doing his own thing in the civilian world. He comes over and he's got a pair of trauma shears. He's like, dude, move your hand, man. I want to see how bad it is. And I looked at him like, fuck you, dude, direct pressure. Because I was probably too much of a bitch in the moment. If I had seen my own blood squirting out, I'd been like, great. So in the end, it actually wasn't bleeding that bad. I mean, the pants that they cut off me in the hospital were soaked in blood on that side. But all they ended up doing was wrapping Curlex and gauze, like a big wad of gauze, and wrapped it and then left it. I've still never had surgery.
Was it a clean through and through?
No, it's all still in my pelvis. So there were metal bars in the window, and I never saw the guy. I just heard it. But from what I was told, basically, as I turned my head, full Somali style, a gun just comes up and just got. So the round that hit me, I suspect nicked a piece of the rebar that was in the window because it was coming apart. And when you look at the x-ray of my leg, the penetrator of the round is on the right-hand side of my pelvis, and there's a couple hundred pieces of frag in my leg that's just spackled everywhere.
You had me at penetrator.
I know I did. That's why I used it. And then the second round that the guy shot at me, because it spun me, it actually hit my belt, burned about 3 inches of my belt, and the copper jacket is welded to the belt that I was wearing that night. And then the round continued through. God damn. So if it hadn't have spun me, it probably would have just detonated my pelvis. And anybody who knows anything about medicine, there's some important things in your pelvis. In my time on Earth, would have been probably counted in minutes if I'd have been lucky. But they took me to the green zone. Like I said, I wasn't the most injured person there by any stretch of the imagination. I wasn't happy about it. Wasn't having fun. But my main complaint was my ankle. I felt like somebody had just taken Thor's hammer, probably Thor himself, and just pounded on my ankle. And come to find out, it was because the round either severed or interacted with my sciatic nerve. So it short-circuited it down all the way to my foot. And I just didn't know what it was. I remember them slowly and gingerly cutting off my left foot. Not my left foot.
You're pretty mobile.
Slowly and gingerly, they cut my foot off. No, they cut the laces off, and they took my shoe off. And I remember just like, God damn, it hurt. Because I hadn't had any morphine. Because I had never had any. And I thought if you took it, it'd be like the movies, and I'd be like blowing bubbles. Come to find out, it doesn't do shit. They ended up juicing me with like a 2-liter bottle and then handed me a phone to call my wife. That was an interesting experience. But the doctor said, well, at first, they had to check to make sure that there was no internal bleeding, so I got a finger up my ass. That was emasculating.
That's a bonus.
And then he's like, well, do you want us to try to take it out? And at least at that point, I had
Was he talking about the finger or the bullet?
he might have done both at the same
Why is
time.
both your hands on my shoulders?
Yeah. I had the wherewithal in the moment to say, what do you mean by take out the frag? He's like, well, there's some ferrous metal in there, obviously. So we're not going to give you an MRI. What we'll do is we will knock you out, put you on your stomach, tube in your mouth, 2-dimensional x-ray. And basically what we'll do is exploratory cuts through your ass cheek, cutting and spreading and looking for the metal along the way.
Yeah, I was with you until exploratory.
Yes. And I remember saying to him, is there an option B? And he said, yeah, well, your body will naturally encapsulate it in calcium. And as long as the lead portion of the round doesn't contact a bone, you should be fine. I'm like, motherfucker, can you lead with that?
Yeah, no shit.
So I went with option B. And so they put me on a pretty heavy morphine drip and put me up, and they literally just wrapped it. Yeah. I mean, I was on pain suppression was basically all that it was. And then the next day, myself and a couple of the guys were moved to Balad. The day after that, and again, I was getting heavy doses of morphine, and it was weird. I remember like waking up and like, I'm pretty sure it was McChrystal, like standing at the end of the bed. And I was like, okay. And then like back to sleep. And like next thing you know, we're getting loaded on in C-141 that has stretchers on the far wall, 2 rows of stretchers in the middle, and stretchers on the right wall, completely full of dudes who are in the worst shape that anybody's ever seen them.
Yeah.
A doctor assigned to every 2. I was a JSOC, right? More budget. I had a doctor for me.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some of the difference too. They traveled with me to Germany and then went back to Iraq. Yeah. Got to Germany and then you started the journey home from there. But I mean,
what year was that?
2005.
05. So,
it was early. They weren't, especially when I got back stateside, they weren't necessarily used to seeing a lot of injuries from overseas.
Yeah. That's I guess for me that I didn't realize that was prior to Buds. I mean, obviously explaining it, but
Buds was kind of my rehab.
Yeah.
I chose to leave development group for a variety of reasons. I satisfied my minimum term there and not a day more. And I left for myself and I left for my family.
Yeah. During that rehab process, was there anything out of the ordinary? I mean, was that process, was there a lot of pain involved, or was it fairly textbook, or what was that like?
So for about a year, I would say the neuropathic pain in my leg was bad. Yeah. And at that time, I can't speak to how it is in the modern day or what the medicine is like now. It was definitely an environment of prescribe and check in with me later. Yeah. I had Oxycontin, I had Percocet, I had Vicodin. They had me signing waivers for the dosage of gabapentin that they were giving me and Neurontin. I can't remember which one of those it is, but one of them is an anti-seizure medicine for kids, and it has a secondary or tertiary side effect of reducing neuropathic pain, but it also reduces your central nervous system processing, and it had an impact. And it didn't help that I was completely in the rabbit hole of boozing my ass off to try to go to sleep. I was taking 3 and 4 Ambien, and I could stay awake. But I was drinking every night. I had 13, 14 pill bottles that I could take from, and I was. And I remember I was driving with my wife, and she asked me a simple arithmetic question about, it had something to do with the price of gasoline and filling up the vehicle. And gas back then was like $1.15. And I think we probably needed to spend $10. The problem was that I recognized I couldn't do the math, and I recognized why. And the Navy didn't have me on a rehab protocol. I would go in every other day, and they would put me on an E-stem machine. They would just put the pads on my muscle, and they would fire it for an hour, and see you later. Go do your thing. So I did my thing in the pill bottles and drinking my ass off. And I mean, I put my wife through hell a lot in my career for sure, but I'm sure that year of our marriage is one that stands out for her, where I was not her favorite person. Yeah. 'Cause I sucked. I mean, I was in a bad place. I was the exact opposite of what I wanted to be. And I remember in that moment though, when she asked me about the gas and not being able to do the math, I knew I had to make a change. But I also knew that if I stopped cold turkey on a lot of those meds, it was going to be an issue, specifically the gabapentin and Neurontin, because if you lower your threshold to seizures and then you stop all of a sudden, you're going to have seizures, even if you're not prone to them. Yeah. So I slowly started working myself off of them. And that's actually how I found CrossFit and ended up getting introduced to the people that created the program and ran the program. I used that as rehab in and of itself. It was painful. Yeah. I had limited range of motion, but if I could get myself to exhaust myself in the gym and I could sweat, I could finally fall asleep. And that was the biggest difference for me, was actually being able to rest. And slowly over about the course of a year, I got myself off of the pain pills. Were the easiest ones to get off of. I think I was doing it more out of habit and leisure time enjoyment.
Yeah.
And I mean, if I'm being honest, and the Neurontin and gabapentin ones were a little bit tougher because I did start feeling the nerve sensation and the burning. And I don't know if I learned to ignore it or it eventually just went away. But about a year later, I was off everything.
No shit.
Yeah.